And good morning, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma, and this is what I call my morning musings. I'm going back over reading and rereading the article by Dr. William Lane Craig that he wrote some time ago by way of objection to the preterist view of eschatology. As I have noted, he was objecting to the view of N.T. Wright, George Caird, R.T. France, McKnight, and others. Anyway, as I noted in my last segment, he offers an objection to preterism that, quite frankly, is confusing, and it is completely misplaced. He said, on the preterist view, the coming of the Son of Man takes place in AD 70, but in between Jesus' death in AD 30 and 40 years later with the destruction of Jerusalem, I guess he's sort of waiting around until the Son of Man is given dominion and authority and everything. And it seems to me that's not the correct. That the Son of Man, Jesus, reigns already after his death and ascension. And he offers 1 Corinthians 15. Well, as I pointed out in my previous segment, I don't know of a preterist who denies that Jesus was ruling and reigning from his ascension until AD 70. However, Dr. Craig actually says, he acknowledges that from the time of the ascension until the parousia, that is the time, as he calls it, this is the interim period. Okay. So the preterist agrees that from the ascension until the parousia, that's the interim period. Dr. Craig agrees that from the ascension until the future coming of the Lord, that's the interim period. So both preterist and Dr. Craig agrees on that. The preterist agrees that Christ was ruling and reigning from his ascension until his parousia. Dr. Craig says Jesus was ruling and reigning from his ascension until his parousia. Okay? So where's the huge difference here? Well, obviously the huge difference is Dr. Craig says Christ has not come. The difference also is that it seems to me Dr. Craig is failing to properly apply the interim period. It is critical to note what Paul says in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verses 23 to 26, and Hebrews chapter 2. In this text, Paul says, Christ must reign until he has put all enemies under his feet. Now, the Greek of the text is in what's known as the present infinitive. He must continue to reign until he has put all enemies under his feet. Notice that Paul says that at the time he wrote, just let me read it here, then comes the end when he delivers the kingdom to God the Father, when he puts an end to all rule, all authority and power, he must reign until he has put all enemies under his feet. The last enemy that will be destroyed is death. For he has put all things under his feet. But when he says all things are put under him, it is evident that he who put all things under him is accepted. Now, when all things are made subject to him, then the Son himself will also be subject to him who put all things under him, that God may be all in all. So, Dr. Craig agrees. Christ put all things under himself, but not all things. He's waiting to put all things, i.e. death, under him. And when he comes, he will put all things under him. The preterist believes that at his ascension, through his cross, he had put all things under him. All things were not yet put under him when Paul wrote, the last enemy to be destroyed would be destroyed at his parousia in AD 70. You see, all we've got here really is a difference in timing. Both the preterist and Dr. Craig agree on the already but the not yet of the subjection of all things. But there is one critical difference here. The preterist believes that Christ never ceases to reign. His kingdom never ends. Dr. Craig believes that Christ surrenders his throne, surrenders his kingdom, hands it over, abdicates it at his parousia. That is an unbiblical rule, doctrine. At his coming, Christ would sit on the throne. Matthew 25:31. At his coming, the church, his bride, would be presented to him. Ephesians 5. At his coming, at the time of the judgment, the kingdoms of this world would become the kingdoms of our God and of his Christ. Now, does that mean he would not rule, he would not reign prior to that? No, but it means, as Dr. Craig says, from the time of his ascension until his parousia, it is the interim period of time in which he was in the process of putting down his enemies. It's not a period of time of inactivity. It is not a period of time in which Jesus is just kind of waiting around doing nothing. I don't know of any preterist that believes that. And Dr. Craig doesn't believe that either. He was ruling, he was reigning. His enemies were being put under his feet as the gospel was going out, as the message of life or as the message of death, 2 Corinthians chapter 2:14 and following. And at his parousia, all principality, all powers would be made subject to him. Greek word katargeo. So, once again, Dr. Craig has really misrepresented the preterist view here. The preterist view agrees that during the interim period, Christ was ruling, Christ was reigning. Christ was putting down his enemies and simply waiting for the proper time when the last enemy, death, would be put under him. Now, Dr. Craig has a problem. As we've just hinted, the Bible does not teach, as we will explore in our very next video, the Bible does not teach that Christ surrenders his rule, that Christ hands over the kingdom insofar as abdication is concerned. This is a critical mistake on the part of Dr. Craig. You don't want to miss our next segment. In the meantime, get yourself a copy of my book, Like Father, Like Son, in which I deal with this topic extensively. Does Christ's rule end at the parousia? And the definitive, final biblical answer is no. Go to my website, eschatology.org or BibleProphecy.com. Order the book, Like Father, Like Son, on Clouds of Glory. Mention that you saw the offer on YouTube or Facebook, and I'll refund your shipping. Be looking for our next segment on the question of, does Christ surrender his rule at his parousia? That'll be on the flip side. We'll see you then.